Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the pleasure and honor of having Nathan Miller with Miller Inc. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Hey there. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So today's a little different. We're going to be talking about two things, how to leverage when you got a big high-profile case, how to get the juice out of it, but also how to deal with crisis management if something bad happens with your firm, God forbid. And this stuff, you don't think it ever happened to you, but it will. Just recently, I had a lawyer who, unbeknownst to him, his partner was a pedophile. And
Wow.
Of course, they kicked him out of the firm, but you can imagine the press was not very nice to him and his firm. So, you got to be ready for these things. And to be honest with you, I don't know where I'd start, to be honest with you. That's why you need somebody like Nathan to come in and help you to try to combat this stuff.
Yep.
And I guess I'm right, Nathan? I mean,
You're all right. I've had some law firms as clients over the years. Lawyers are people too. They get involved in certain things.
Yeah.
We've had a bunch of interesting cases. I've done some cases where law firms were being extorted by employees and former partners. I've done, lawyers making bad business decisions, figuring out how to then deal with it. And when you're a law firm, you have the additional layer of you've got a bar license, you've got a higher ethical duty in theory. You're, officer of the court, all those things. And so it's complicated. And then I work every day with attorneys. They're probably my closest professional colleagues in terms of a lot of the crises we handle.
Yeah. So let's start with the good stuff first. So if, like I had one of my mastermind members, they just got a $36 million verdict. And he called me, he says, I want to get some good press out of this. Give me some advice. And of course, I didn't know about you then, but I sent him to a publicist or whatever, a PR person, to try to help him get some press out of it. But then on the other hand, then you got the other stuff like this. So what do you tell lawyers, like if they get a big verdict or make some landmark decision that changes the law in the state they're in or whatever, make a difference, make a change in the law? How do y'all help them?
There's so many different ways. And every case is different. In my business, we think about, we're a strategic communications firm, meaning we work across earned, owned, and paid media. Now, it used to be, when I first started in this business about 20 years ago, those were all different. And you had your advertising folks here, you had your marketing folks here, you had your PR folks here.
Right.
It kind of operated in silos. And over the years, these different worlds have come more and more together.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case today. So, one of the things we kind of have a tongue-in-cheek sign up in my company, we put it on our website, PR is dead. What I mean by that is the kind of like traditional way of thinking about a lot of this work is pretty obsolete. What you want to do is understand, at the core of every good communications program is a clear and defined objective, a targeted audience, and a concise, clear and compelling message that moves your message in the direction of that moves your audience in the direction of your objective. Yeah. So I evaluate the tactical approach, whether that's going and reaching out to reporters, and I could talk to you about, I'm going to answer your question in a second. I'm just giving a little context. I evaluate that through the lens of that framework of what's the objective, who's the audience, and what's the message that we want to deliver, right? So if you're a law firm, you want some sort of geographic segment to understand that you're the biggest, baddest, most dynamic law firm in this region. That's the message, right? And the audience is potential clients. And the objective is you want those potential clients to know who you are and hire you. So then you have a universe of possibilities, right? So there's kind of the traditional earned media, we call it, or public relations or media relations. There's a lot of different names. So within that universe, you want to think about maybe, going to the general market press, right? People who cover the TikTok of these kinds of cases and you maybe give somebody an exclusive on what's going to come out. Maybe you give it to them ahead of time, or maybe some lawyers are more conservative. They don't like giving people things before they're through the court, but the minute it hits the docket, you're ready to go and you know who you're calling. You want to think about the trade press, right? There's a ton of legal trade press. It's one of the last, not the last, it's a unique example of there's really a lot of investment in people who cover lawsuits. They're good reporters, and there's a lot of solid publications that do that because there's money in it and there's an audience for it, and people and lawyers are willing to pay a lot of money to access that information. So whether that's the Law 360s or the Bloomberg Laws or above the line, I mean, wherever you are, and depending on what you are, there's that trade press element. There's the local media. Local television is always a great option in many ways for different stories. It's another area where the press hasn't been totally gutted. And I should say, as I look at the last 5-10 years, and it's definitely going in this direction even more, a lot of those big mid-market players, the Chicago Tribunes, the LA Times, those sorts of types of papers that have been totally gutted. The big Washington Post, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal have had their moment. We'll see. The election in 2016 really gave them a lot of gave them some juice. I'm not sure that they'll get the same bump this time. We'll see. They have more power than they've ever had before, but the question is, will they be able to really retain it and keep that subscriber base? Yeah. And then you see all of these. So that's sort of the traditional media, and then you have all these smaller kind of digital only outlets, and there's a spectrum of those from highly credible, specific, really reach that target audience that you want to reach in a powerful way, to totally not credible. Some of them are many of them are pay to play. You pay to get the coverage you want. Some of them are run by foreign state actors or interest groups. And that area between sort of paid and earned has gotten real blurred. So you have that dynamic. And then when you're thinking about getting out a big lawsuit, you want to think about your own channels. What I see more than ever, we do webinars at my company. I'll just bring on a guest, or, and I'll get more traction just putting something up on YouTube, sending an email out ahead of time to our mailing list. I'll get more eyeballs sometimes than when I do a TV spot, which I do quite often. More people in my universe will see it who matter. So you want to think about that too. It's not just about, can you get the press? The press provides a nice validation. And you want to think about how you bring together your earned media, your own media, meaning, your email newsletter, your YouTube channel, your social media, your website, and then you're paid. Maybe it makes sense if you want to, amplify the success of a verdict. Sometimes you want to pay some money, and it's worth it. So and there's advertising strategies around that. So that's how I think about. It's a very long answer to your questions, Ken. I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to give the whole context.
No, I mean, and I was thinking as you were talking that, like if you want to get more of these types of cases from the public, that's one thing. But what if you're trying to niche yourself in this, whatever this area is, and you want to get referrals from other attorneys in your area, then you would go to where they're at. And I guess that would be the legal publications and whatever.
That's exactly right. I have some campaigns where we have an audience of one, literally one person. And so then you have to think about, that's why I always start with that framework. When people come and start working for me here, it's the first lecture that we give them, audience objective message. And if you have a strategic framework, so many times clients will come into my office and they'll say, well, we need better PR. That doesn't give me anything to understand what we actually need to do to achieve for them. And they might be wrong, by the way. It might not be that they need better PR in the way they think about it. They might need actually a different approach, because you have so many tools at your disposal to reach these audiences now. So the question is, how do you bring them together into an ecosystem? And that's where we're always trying to be a step ahead.
Yeah. And this is something that I don't know the answer to. And then usually I ask questions I know got an idea, but I see people pitching like these news wires or these press releases.
Yeah.
These digital press releases. Are they worth a damn, really?
Depends what you're trying to do again, right? So where those digital press releases can be useful for an SEO perspective. So search engine optimization. So when someone searches your name on Google, it's the new, kind of business card or portfolio, what comes up. So depending on which one of the services you're using, sometimes they can be effective in giving you a high ranking story that's your narrative that people will see. But that's the only benefit. In other words, from my perspective, unless you have an audience that's going to be really, I mean, again, it depends back on the audience. If your audience will be impressed that you were able to get your press release on the AP, when most sophisticated audiences know that is just, you paid to put the wire up and it ended up on this website, but it's not going to give you the kind of validation of a real news story.
Yeah. And so when bad things happen, I mean, to me, that would be, I equivocate it to doing criminal law versus doing PI law, which criminal, I'm trying to keep people out of trouble.
Yeah.
And PI, I'm trying to get people a lot of money, right?
Right.
Trying to save somebody on one day, and the other one, I'm trying to make them something. So I think the crisis management is sort of like doing a criminal law. You're trying to save them from losing money or losing time or whatever,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, first of all, I've done a number of, and I'm actively doing a number of big high profile national white collar criminal cases. I haven't done, we've only done white collar. We haven't done like murder cases or anything like that, but I've done a number of white collar cases.
Now, are you representing the lawyers or are you representing the people that
We're retained through the law firm to assist in the litigation and the communication around these things. It has to be a big enough case that it makes sense to have us, right? Someone gets a DUI, unless they're a really high profile person, probably they're not gonna need us. But we do a lot of cases where there's a big, sometimes publicly traded company involved and a CEO and whatever. So we do a lot of those cases.
I think the Bitcoin guy could have used you.
Which one? Sam Bankman-Fried?
Yeah.
My very good buddy did that case. We've done a very high profile, another Bitcoin case, the Custodia Bank case, where my client's actually suing the Federal Reserve of the United States to get access a master account, which has been a big story. It's been in the national press for the last couple of years. We've had fun with that one. It's been an interesting case. Yeah, I've done, if you Google my name, you'll see it in a lot of big national litigation. And our role is to help think about all those things that maybe the lawyers don't have time to think about or don't have expertise to think about, whether it's dealing with the media, kind of the digital strategy. What is the message that you're going to deliver when you have different audiences? Like the lawyer's audience is pretty clear. It's the court, usually it's the judge, it's the jury. We help think about all those other audiences that are outside the courtroom when we're working with these lawyers and, on these big cases.
Yeah, what you're saying though, it's just like when I'm talking to my marketing team, I said the first question I got asked is, what is our objective? I mean, are we trying to just get branding, or are we trying to get more clicks or get more people raise their hand? Are we just trying to get more recognition, or what's our purpose? And like you said, and then what's going to be our message in that? So I think in a sense, what you're doing, I mean, you're marketing a message. I mean, but you got to, it's just like when you're looking at doing something, you got to figure out what your objective is. I mean, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Because it can be different.
Exactly. And, I often say we're in the business of selling ideas, and that's what we do. We spend a lot of time thinking about what is the right message, who's the right messenger, and then what is the right framework, what are the right tactical vehicles to bring that message to life? How do you orchestrate that? How do you choreograph that into a campaign that proceeds over time?
Well, have you ever been approached by either big firms that are handling big mass torts against big companies, or either the big companies coming to you?
Yep. I've worked both sides of those issues. I don't know if that'll make any of your lawyers happy, but
no, I mean, you're a hard gun.
Yeah, we've done some of the big mass torts, and I've represented some companies in facing class actions. They're interesting cases. I had a case, I'm not going to share the specific names on this one because we weren't publicly, but we had a company that was named in a big class action suit, and the plaintiff's attorneys had used hacked materials in their complaint, and they shared them in the complaint, and we were able to use that to create a nightmare for them, basically, and to really undercut the whole case. It was eventually dropped completely. But there's a whole other dimension here that people don't think about on these mass complaint. I've watched the field evolve, but now that you have all these online influencers and you have the kind of effect of what happens on social media and the damage that you do to a brand, it's unbelievable. I had a client, big retailer, lots of local locations all over the country, facing a mass tort, and the other side, either hired or ran a very sophisticated marketing operation to ensure that all of their stores, not just the one that was named in this matter, had 1-star reviews, negative reviews, and really tried to inflict damage onto the business. And I think that that's the way a lot of these suits are now playing out. It's not just in the court of law, but it's also on these other things that have a direct impact on how people can operate and how much money they're making.
Well, it's public opinion, yeah. And I think I do know this: how you frame something, and if you're the first one to frame it,
Yeah,
that's a big difference, right?
it absolutely does. You always I always like being on the plaintiff side of a suit because, it's not fun to be the guy that gets the call and says, they just hit us and we have an hour to comment and I don't know anything about the case. And the other side's already, planning their second, third, and fourth move. I have a 5.5-year-old son who loves playing chess, so I'm really proud of that. But, I love that he loves playing chess because that's the way you have to think in this business. It's not just the move ahead of you, it's the 6th move after you've kind of already gone to this place. And that's when, if you plan ahead and you understand, I want to go here when you're playing the media game, you can think about all the different other options there are. And when you're a defendant and someone's named you in a suit and you kind of just have to respond immediately. There's something fun about those cases. There's an athleticism to it. You kind of have to move quickly and get people to the right, to the least bad option, and then, figure out how do you respond, how do you counterattack. But right. I do enjoy how that works, and it's fun to be the plaintiff because you can create the battlefield that the other side has to walk into.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting, and I like the framing stuff. I always felt like the way you frame something or reframe something can make a big difference.
Makes a big difference, yeah.
In your results, whatever it might be, business, marketing, whatever. I mean, all communications. Right.
I totally agree. It's amazing how much you can change someone's opinion when you understand how to do it correctly. Humans are open to being persuaded more than you would think, or at least to having their view complicated. I wouldn't be in business if I didn't believe that, but I really think through our work over time, I see it, how much opportunity there is to really shape opinions.
Yeah. Well, I think social media did so much more to change that, to make it quicker, to make it a lot quicker. Maybe not change.
It's crazy. I'll tell you, when I was a sophomore in college when Facebook came out on our campus. And one of my first jobs in PR was setting up the Dodgers Facebook page. And I remember sitting in the conference room with these baseball executives, and they were like laughing, and they said, what is this thing that you're doing? Doesn't make any sense. No one's going to ever use this to really play baseball. And like, they were sort of indulging us and letting us set it. I said, guys, this is going to be the whole future. You just wait. And then, and when I went to the UN 2010 to work, I was the chief speechwriter at Israel's mission to the United Nations. And I ran the communications office there. There was no social media at that time in diplomacy. I remember Susan Rice was the US ambassador to the UN. And she said, I don't do diplomacy by haiku. She said, when someone asked her if she's on Twitter. And then within a year, she was on Twitter and like really active and one of the top diplomats at the UN. And I built the social media program there. I hired someone and and the first time I looked at the ambassador, he said, you want budget to hire a guy to post online all the time? And I said, yeah, that's what I want. And he was like, it took him some time to really come around to that notion that mattered. And now you just see it's everything. So that's what I think in my field, where I'm always trying to be, as I now am kind of I'm a middle-aged guy, is thinking about how do you always stay fresh and understand how quickly first of all, this field is changing so rapidly and the pace of change continues to increase exponentially. So, our firm is always thinking, we have to think about things like, how is AI changing what we do? How is the algorithm and Google changing? How are, with these changes in media and the way that reporters write stories and are employed, how are you ahead 2 or 3 steps? Because if you're not investing now in that rapid pace of change, you're going to get caught flat-footed. And I see that so often in our business. And a piece of advice I would have for your listeners is make sure that the folks you're working with in PR are at the cutting edge of where this space is. A really effective strategy in 1995 is no longer effective. There's good principles in communication that go back to Aristotle, that matter. Ethos, logos, pathos is still a really great way to win an argument.
Right.
And you need those core foundations. You need those writing skills, those understanding of, this strategic understanding of how people are motivated and persuaded. But you also have to have a tactical and strategic understanding of the way that the information environment is shaped today. If you're not 3 or 4 steps ahead, somebody else will definitely eat your lunch.
And I think that's what we're doing today, these podcasts. I mean, I started 5 years ago. I was like one of the few thought leaders in the legal deal on marketing management that actually was doing this. Then there's loads of them, but the deal is a lot of my lawyers, they listen to me and other people while they're working out in the morning, like they're 30 minutes in the gym. They got their head, you got the earphones on or whatever, the iPods, and they'll do that, or when they ride their bike or when they're walking the beach or whatever. They're using that time to, I guess, multitask, but they're getting something done and they're listening to and learning. And so
it's great. No, I think that, the long tail of, they call it the long tail of media, right? Being able to reach these niche audiences. It's so powerful. I see it with my clients. Many of my podcasts are different, vehicles to reach directly to an audience. And I'm the same thing. I'm a big consumer of podcasts, and there's certain, X feeds that I'm on all the time to get really specific news and information around different interests I have, whether it's, the MLS soccer team that I like, or the communications field, or different subject matter areas on cases I'm working on. You want to use traditional media still. I think it's a good filter for some things, but so much of the very specific information that I'm interested in, you have to have a broader view. And when you're on my side of the ledger, which is trying to get information out there, you have to use all those different channels, and we do. And it's remarkable how effective you can be when you're able to use all those different tools.
Well, any parting words for our listeners or viewers?
I would say, don't underinvest in this as you're thinking about growing your business, and as you're thinking about building successful legal campaigns for your clients. Hire smart, strategic communications professionals who've worked with lawyers before. Don't just hire publicists who've been doing this a long time. It might not be the right fit. Hire really, I think this is something that's worth investing in, and hire people who have experience in your specific area of the law as much as you can, because that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to contact you or your firm, what's the best way to do that?
You can call us. We're based in California, but we have a team, on the East Coast as well, and in Northern California. And you can email me at Nathan, Nathan, at Miller, Miller -Inc, INK.com. And we're at Miller Inc with a K. You can look us up there. Always happy to take questions, and, love to chat with folks.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. And, hope things are going good out in LA.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.